Hi everyone, welcome to the Women's College podcast Voices of Influence, hosted and produced by me, Annie White. Our episodes aim to guide young women in their 20s with insightful advice from voices in our community. The topics we touch on are diverse to relate to the various milestones young women experience, whether it is personal or professional. Listen in to hear from our inspiring current and past WUSA guests. We acknowledge the traditional owners of this land on which the Women's College and the University of Queensland stand, the Turrbal and Yagara people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. We recognise their deep connection to land, waters and culture, and honour their continuing legacy of storytelling and knowledge sharing. For our very first episode of 2026, we're diving into a topic that sits at the heart of both personal and professional growth, the importance of career mentorship. Joining me today are two incredible women from two different stages of life whose mentor-mentee relationship shows just how powerful intergenerational connection can be. First, we are joined by Ella Reddaway, a young alumna of the Women's College. Ella was the 2025 Deputy Senior RA and is currently in her fourth year at the University of Queensland, completing a dual degree in Communication and Arts, majoring in Public Relations and International Relations. She's also been recently promoted from intern to consultant at 3+, a public relations and communication services company here in Brisbane. We're also joined by Juliet Alabaster, a distinguished alumna of the Women's College who graduated from UQ in 2002 with Bachelor of Law and Business. Juliet has had over 20 years of experience across marketing, events and tourism management in Brisbane, including 17 years at the Brisbane Economic Development Agency, or BEDA, where she progressed from project manager through to general manager. She is now the Chief Executive Officer of City Parklands within Brisbane City Council and is an active participant in Brisbane Mentor Walks, an initiative that promotes authentic, judgment-free mentoring conversations. In today's episode, we'll be talking about how their mentoring relationship began, what mentorship has looked like in practice, and why having someone in your corner, whether you're just starting out or well into your career, can make all the difference. So, whether you're a current student, a recent graduate, or someone navigating the next step in your career, this conversation is for you. Let's get started. For the first question, just to start, I just wanted you guys to explain relationships to the Women's College. How long did you go here? And yeah.
I'll go first. Do you want me to go first? Excellent. I started at Women's in 1998 and I finished in 2000. So I spent 3 years on campus at Women's, and in my third year I was the social convener.
I also spent 3 years at Women's from 2023 to 2025. It's a very recent memory. And in my third year, I was the Deputy Senior RA.
Wow, I didn't know that you were the social convener.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, back in our day, we were just talking about this on the way here, actually. We had, I think that we called them informals. So we had them at Women's once a term, and then, of course, the ball in third term, I think. Yeah. So, which was always a huge night, fantastic night.
It's interesting how much has stayed the same, though, I think.
Yes.
Like, much of it is exactly the same now as it was when you were organising.
Indeed.
Like, even probably the date is probably similar
probably
every Yeah. Okay, so Ella, we're here to talk about career mentors. Can you explain what the career mentorship program is at Women's?
Yeah, so the Career Mentor program is offered to third year students and second year student leaders. I think it's an opt-in kind of program where you get to choose if it's something that you'd be interested in, which I obviously was. I remember we had to fill out a form that said what we were studying, what we were interested in career-wise, kind of what we wanted to learn more about. And from there, they matched us mentees up with, or mentors who had signed up their expertise and knowledge to be mentors to us, and kind of matched us based on careers and interests and degrees. And then we met each other, or we didn't, but there's a career mentor formal dinner where you can meet your mentor and kind of kick off the relationship there.
And Juliet, like what was the process in getting involved in the career mentorship program?
Yeah, sure. I think actually for me, it probably started with a course I got to do when I was working for Brisbane Economic Development Agency. So in 2024, they invited me to do the Chief Executive Women's course. And in that, you do 7 contact days over a number of months. And a number of really remarkable women came in and gave their time and talked about their career journeys. And in that, talked a lot about the mentors they'd had and the impact they'd had on, their personal careers. So I guess that probably was a starting point for me to think, I could probably be doing more in this space. So in 2025, the email came out from Women's and I saw the opportunity to sign up. So I did. I was already doing Queensland Tourism Industry Council mentoring, so I kept doing that. And also I randomly came across mentor walks as well. So I signed up to that. So I went all in on mentoring last year. And then, as Ella said, the mentors also filled out a form in our background, and then we were matched by the college.
Awesome. But there's only one favourite mentee.
Absolutely. Of course.
I didn't even know the process for you guys. I did just kind of assume that an email was sent out. So for listeners who may be in their degrees or unsure about their future, how would you define career mentorship in simple terms?
I think career mentorship is kind of what you make it, and it's what you make it from the relationship you have with your mentor or your mentee. I know some people who have quite formal, structured relationships with their mentors, or through other mentor programs, not just the women's program, where it's quite structured and you have structured meetings and so on and so forth, or others, which is kind of like ours, that's more informal, and it's like meeting over a coffee and talking about career aspects and aspirations and advice and things like that, but also reflecting on time at Women's and connecting over common interests and things like that. So I think it is what you make it. It is what your relationship is.
Yeah, I think in simple terms, it's probably a bit like Google Maps. And that the mentee knows where they want to go, and the mentor helps with different routes and removing roadblocks, or doing a U-turn when needed. So that's probably how I'd explain it in simple terms. It's like Google Maps for your career.
I love that analogy. That's so good. So why do you think mentorship is especially important for young women?
Yeah, I can go on that one. So I think it's always been important, but probably hasn't been as formalised as it is now in the workplace, I think. I know from my experience, you'd hear people talk about mentors, but there wasn't really a pathway to get into it. So I think for young women just starting out, it's, one of the most important steps is actually getting your first foot on the ladder. And I think, career mentoring and programs like Women's Run are really important to helping get that first step. So I think that's why, they're a great opportunity for people starting out in their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think great for people starting out in their careers, but even just beginning my career, I can already see the path of how mentorship can be so important all the way through. And I think especially for women, we kind of have a unique set of challenges, especially when you get a little bit later into your career and you're thinking about having kids and starting a family and how that works, balancing that. I remember when Juliet invited me to one of her mentor walks, and I was paired with a few women who, one of them was talking about she just had a kid and she was coming back to work, and she'd come back to work and she wasn't sure if that job was the right direction for her anymore. She was thinking about moving jobs, but unsure if she wanted to have another kid. And I think in that part of your life, that can also be really important. But all the way throughout, if you're thinking about changing jobs or changing careers, there's always a place for mentorship and that kind of opinion level of expertise, just another voice in your kind of decision making.
It's interesting how you can kind of see those steps now as well to what you would even want to I'm guessing you might even want to be a career mentor when you're further into your own career. And yeah, it's cool seeing that you can actually see your plan ahead.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think being a mentee makes you appreciate the role of a mentor more as well. In the future, when I've got some advice and some expertise to offer, I would want to do that for somebody else, to be that kind of guidance in the way that Juliet has been for me. And I think it's kind of a cycle. Once you're involved with it, you want to keep being involved with it and keep helping others.
I love that. Do you think there's like a misconception about career mentors? People have like a sort of a misunderstanding of what they can sometimes entail.
For some people, they think the mentor will give them all the answers, and actually the best mentors are there to listen and probably ask questions and actually guide along the way, but help the mentee, come to their own conclusion. And I think the other thing too is what's been really great with Ella as well is being willing to put the work in. So a lot of what I like to do with my mentees is get them out and meeting people, because a lot of your career, of course, is what you know, but it is who you know as well. And I think, being able to connect with people and network is hugely important. So I remember on World Tourism Day last year, I had a spare seat at a networking breakfast, and I asked Ella if she'd like to come along, but we weren't actually seated at the same table. So I did throw her a little bit into the deep end, but it was a safe space. And I think that was a great example of, being in a corporate environment, getting to network with people and putting the effort in yourself. But, we give the opportunities, and then the mentees need to come in and grab hold of them and go forward. So, hopefully that's what's happened through our relationship.
Absolutely. I think another misconception that I noticed through kind of witnessing the Women's Mentor program was that your mentor doesn't have to be the person that you think you're going to be in 20 years. It doesn't, you know what I mean? You don't have to. Juliet isn't, your role is not one that I would have thought when I started my uni degree, I really want to be that. I think that's kind of the beauty of it. If you have someone that you think that's the exact career that I want to be in, that's the exact role I want to be in, you kind of miss out on the extra perspective of different paths and different degrees and different ways of getting
that's a
there.
Great point.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point for anyone who's looking at it, that you don't have to find exactly the same as you into the future, because as you find in your friendships at school and at college, etc., that variety actually gives you a whole lot more to work with. So that's a great point.
Yeah, I love that, because I think I kind of needed to hear that as well, because we're about to get paired with our career mentors and I have no idea who I'm going to have. And I think it's good to be like open-minded about, they probably won't be like exactly the career that I'm going to have. They probably won't have the exact same interests and connections that I'm interested in. But yeah, I really like that perspective as well. So Ella, did you have anything that like specifically motivated you to apply to being part of the program?
Yeah, well, we were kind of talking about this on the way over. I was in my third year of my degree, and I was kind of getting to a place where I was learning all the theory, and I was happy with where I was at with uni, and I was thinking, this is really interesting. This is definitely what I want to do, the kind of world I want to be in. But now I'm at a place where I want to see it, and I want to speak to people who are in that world and meet people and network and just kind of get a foot in the door in terms of kind of what I was looking at, where I was going to be, and get more of a perspective of what my career might look like, kind of nearing the end of my degree. So that was probably the driving factor, was just I wanted to meet people and pick their brains and hear about what they thought about the industry and corporate life in general.
So for both of you, can you explain the process of how you were actually paired together, and what did you have any first impressions?
Yeah, so I got an email to say that I'd been matched with Ella, and for some reason I couldn't make the dinner that Ella mentioned before. So we actually met over lunch in the city, and I guess my first impressions were bright, intelligent, enthusiastic. I think one of the things that surprised me as well, and you've just mentioned it too, Ella, was you were really looking to get some part-time work or get a foot on the ladder. It surprised me that you're finding that a challenge, and I think that's something that the professional world need to look at, because I think a lot of businesses actually need people like yourselves who can work part-time and want to get in and are willing to put in the hard work, but we don't really know where to find those people. So I think there's something in that we need to solve here in Brisbane around, enthusiastic people either still at uni or just coming out who want to get into the workforce, and people, putting jobs out that talk about years of experience when really they need a hard worker who's willing to put in the time and the effort. So I think that surprised me as well, that you're having such a challenge. So yeah, that's my first impression.
I think it absolutely is who you know. not what you know, was what I learned from that and what I continue to learn. I remember filling out the form and it put kind of, what do you want to do? Like, what's your career direction and who would you like to be paired with? Like, what would you like their kind of career to be? And I put about 10 words. I'm doing a degree with 2 degrees and 3 separate like majors and minors. So I'm in this place where I've got kind of fingers in all the pies. I don't know, I was interested in all of it. So I put people like communications, I put public relations, I put governance, I put politics, and then we got paired. I Googled you, I LinkedIn you.
Of course.
And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I was looking at your career progression. I was like, this is amazing. And I remember I called my mum and I said, this is how I've been paired. And she said, that's amazing. You're so lucky. And I was, yeah, I know. And then, yeah, we went to lunch in the city. And I think my first impression was how warm you were and welcoming. It didn't feel like the kind of relationship where there was like a hierarchy. Like it felt very like, I'm here as me and you are here as you, and I'm not, it wasn't like a teacher, you know, like you weren't talking down on me or like you need to do what I say or anything like that. It was very much like a conversation. And I think also having women's in common was so nice because a lot of the time when you're a young mentee and you've not done much networking or anything, it can be intimidating to go into a one-on-one conversation with a professional.
Absolutely, yes.
So I came in and I was kind of like, okay, if I run out of things to say, we can talk about women's. And we did, and it was great. You've got this base connection to start with.
Absolutely.
Common experience.
Yes.
That was the best.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I guess a really strong framing for the program is that common, love of women's, I'd say. And yes, I think that's also what surprised me in the first meeting was, when we did talk about college, I was like, oh my goodness, it doesn't feel like, I can't believe it's 28 years. I've been there, but 28 years ago that I was there because so much of it felt the same. Yeah. It was awesome. But it was I guess a safer way or a softer landing in mentoring when you've got this really, strong platform in common. So it's a good point.
I really enjoyed those like first impressions. Of course, you're both gonna kind of think like positive things about each other because like you'll have this high expectation of like, oh, who's it gonna be? But yeah, I liked that. Was there anything that surprised you early on about each other?
I think your career path surprised me because it's fairly non-linear. Is that a good word?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that was good for me because I got to learn that you don't have to start in a certain place and end up somewhere else. You can really chop and change and
yes,
be broad and have different roles and careers. So it opened my mind more to roles in the corporate world. When you're in uni, you kind of only know about CEO and that's kind of it. And there's obviously so many roles within that in different companies. So I was like, COO, I think you were at the time.
Yes.
I didn't really know anything about that. I was like, what is that? I hadn't heard of Beta before.
Yes.
So learning about that company, which is actually so prevalent throughout Brisbane, I think that was probably what surprised me more than anything, and just kind of being introduced to the Brisbane corporate world. But nothing about you specifically, I think, surprised me.
I think, as I said before, just how much you do have in common. It probably surprised me in the beginning, but now that I look back on, shouldn't have. But and again, that makes it a really warm start in that sense. But yeah, not too many other things.
So Ella, like, how do you feel, or it can be for both of you actually as well, like, how do you stay in touch and actually meet up regularly on like a kind of more scheduled basis?
Yeah. Juliet was probably more the driver of that than anything else, which I think is great for the mentor to do. I think as a mentee, it can be quite intimidating from what I've heard, especially from others who are like, this person is so busy, they have a job and a family and I'm just a college student. My schedule is fairly open. Juliet was really great we would go for coffees and lunches and meet up and just chat, but then advancing that to inviting me to things, I think was a great way. And then we could go to this event and then catch up for a coffee after and kind of talk that through and how was that and how was that experience and who did you meet was kind of, I think, the best way to advance it. And for me, I was like, just so happy to be in the room and see how it worked more than anything and practice my networking skills and introducing yourself and talking about, what you're doing, what you're studying. So I think that was probably how it progressed.
Yeah, I think so. I think if I commit to being a mentor, I've committed my time and I'm sure that's how everyone feels. But I understand the mentees may find that still a little bit intimidating. But I really try when we're at the meeting to book the next one. And, you know, so that you've always got that in your diary, because otherwise, it gets busy and things fill up, etc. So that's really how we worked it, wasn't it? And then occasionally things would pop up that I'd, you know, shoot a text message and say, hey, can you make this, or can you come along? And that's sort of how we do it. And now, funnily enough, we are both working just off Post Office Square, so we're really
Neighbours.
close. Yeah, we're neighbours in the city, so that makes it really easy.
And do you feel like for the start of your relationship, was it more like formal? And how do you think that helped or impacted your relationship?
I definitely think it was more conversational.
Oh yeah, we were informal.
Yeah, we were informal.
Yes.
But I think that was great because it made me really comfortable from the beginning, and it didn't feel like a job interview or a really formal occasion where you had to sort of be your most polished self. It was really informal, which also meant I felt like I could talk about sort of more personal aspects of like navigating your career. Like we had a good chat a few weeks ago where I was talking about life after uni and trying to figure out what's next in terms of being young and trying to live a bit of life, but also starting a career and wanting to build on that. And I think that's the kind of personal connection that's maybe harder to form from a really formal kind of base.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think I'm formal when I need to be, but I think, you know, in these sorts of relationships, you know, we could be more informal, and I think that did help us feel more comfortable to talk about those things as well quite quickly. And I think to my point before around, you know, mentors not always, you know, having all the answers. We're really here to listen. You know, when Ella did talk about, you know, that particular point she mentioned there, I didn't say one way or the other. I just gave her my experience. And so in that particular one I was talking about, I was working for a professional conference organizer at the time, and a women's girl, the year above me, was working for the Fanatics, who follow the Rugby World Cup. And she had said, you know, why don't you come and do this with me for 4 months, just, you know, travel around Australia, going to all the World Cups. And I thought, oh my God, how awesome. And I asked my boss at the time if I could go, and he said no. And I look back now and I think, oh, I should have just gone. And I think it's more those things that we can offer. It's not saying this is the right or wrong way, but this is my experience. And I think that's where a lot of the value comes from.
And that's the kind of thing you can't get from a LinkedIn profile. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
the kind of thing you have to have from actual connection and getting to know each other, I think.
Yeah. And you would find out those things about each other and like specific story from your career by being more informal. Like
Yes.
you're not going to find those questions by being like strict and teacher-like and formal all the time. Yeah. For Juliet, can you kind of like walk us through your career progression? I know we were just talking about being non-linear from graduating at UQ to becoming CEO.
Yes, sure. Okay, yes, no problem. So yes, I did law and business at UQ, and then I went on to do College of Law, so through Sydney, and so it was 6 months coursework, and then you had to do 6 months in a law firm to be admitted. But after I'd done my coursework, my elder sister decided to get married in the US. So I actually travelled to that, and at that point I decided to keep going. So I went on to the UK, and I did just under 2 years working mainly in Scotland and then in London. And I worked for a recruitment company doing everything but recruitment, really. So office management, I guess. And the reason I got that job was because another women's girl was living in Glasgow, and she had a spare room, and she was working for this company and needed some extra support. So that's how I ended up working with her. And so I came back from the UK. My parents actually owned the Stratty pub, so the hotel at Point Lookout. And when I came back, I actually went back to the island, and I worked for them for 6 months, which was a strange experience because not only had I lived on campus at Women's, but I'd also been at boarding school. So I hadn't lived at home since I was about 15. So it was really lovely, actually, a really lovely experience to go back when you're 23, and I guess you have a different relationship with your parents then, and you're more like friends, and you sit down and you discuss all sorts of things together, and it was really lovely. But I thought, oh, I can't stay on the island forever. So I moved back into Brisbane, and at the recommendation recommendation actually of a family friend, I got a role in a professional organising, conference organising company, a PCO. And we used to work on like big international conferences and bring them into the city. And so I did that for a little while. And then my parents knocked down the pub and rebuilt it, and I decided to go back and do the opening with them. So I did that, and they then sold the hotel. You're right, it's not very linear, is it? I actually made a phone call to a lady who was at Brisbane Economic Development Agency, or Brisbane Marketing at the time, and her name was Patricia Cuppage. And that is Cuppage of Cuppage Wing at Women's. And I said to her, look, my parents have sold and I won't be the point of contact anymore. And she said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And 2 days later, I got a call and I got invited to come in for an interview at Brisbane Marketing and work for them for 3 months. So I did that and I got the job, and I ended up being 17 years into a 3-month contract because I worked through that department up to general manager over a few years. And so I was general manager of business events, and then we restructured and I got major events as well. So, attracting things like Brisbane International Tennis, Magic Round, the PGA, World Science Festival. We do all that for the city. Then we restructured again and I got tourism. So I had business events, major events, tourism, destination marketing. COVID hit and I got the opportunity to be the interim CEO. And then when they replaced the CEO, I went to Chief Operating Officer. So that was my career at Beta. And at the same time, about 4 years ago, I went onto the board of City Parklands, and I was a director for them. And when the CEO left partway through last year, I got the opportunity to step in the CEO role, and I took it. So that's how it turned out. So definitely not how I planned it. As you get older, a few of you may experience childbirth, and it never goes the way you plan it either. So you learn that in life. Best intentions, but what life throws you and where you end up can be a little bit different. But it's been great.
I just want to say Patricia, Hoop Coverage.
Oh yes.
She was fabulous.
Yes.
But even in my very short career thus far, there were college people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm learning now the value of college beyond the 3 years.
Absolutely.
However many years you stay there.
Mm-hmm.
I moved from the Sunshine Coast. I didn't know anyone in Brisbane, not a soul. And now I know people everywhere. And even if I don't know people, there are old women's girls or old jabbers everywhere.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. Well, it's the same for me because I went to school on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know anyone either. So, and now I've got, this huge network from college days.
It's amazing. I can't wait to have doctor and lawyer friends that I can call.
Indeed.
And you even just like in that story had some perfect examples of just like women's girls are everywhere, like that women's girl living in Glasgow.
Yes.
Yes. How lucky.
Yeah.
And then more on a career mentor note, what aspects of being a career mentor have you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I think it's watching mentees on their career journeys and the small things that I've helped them with on achieving their next role. So I remember one lady that I got to mentor. She was actually she was here on a working visa from Canada, and she was actually sponsored by a company. So she was attached to the company and couldn't leave until her permanent residency came through. And she'd done international relations. She was working in project management, I think, and then events as well. And she was sort of waiting out her time for this permanent residency to come and really looking at the different things she could do. And she was contemplating doing an MBA. Like she was, what can I do? How can I get another job? How do I get myself in the best position? And I said, oh, look, I know the head of the UQ Business School. Why don't I set up a call with him and you can chat through and just get his advice on if it's, the best thing for you? Because I didn't know if it was the best thing for her to do, but at least I had a connection that she could talk to. And she did that, and they had a really good conversation. And in the end, he actually suggested that she shouldn't do an MBA and she go a different way. And I guess I was really pleased that my small part in that was just knowing the person and being able to make the introduction. And then, she went on from there to make her decisions around that. But I think that's what's really rewarding about mentoring. It's, those little things that actually change the course for people.
You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but can you explain the Brisbane Mentor Walks program for people who have never heard of it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So Mentor Walks, it was started by two ladies, Bobby and Adina, I think they are, and they were traveling in China and they went to this mentor walk there, and they thought it was a great concept, and they actually came back to Australia and they started it in Sydney, and it's spread from there. So it's all across Australia, and it's actually in New Zealand now, and starting to take over the world. But what it is women volunteer their time as mentors. So we sign up and we commit to walking 6 times a year on a Friday morning, and the one in Brisbane is in the City Botanic Gardens. And so we, I guess, volunteer our time. And anyone, any female can come along and register, and I think it's about $45 to do it. And you pop in your key question or the topic that you want to talk about, and you get matched with a mentor, and there's likely 1 or 2 other mentees in your group. So you walk in groups of 3 or 4. It starts at 7:10. And it goes till 8:30. So you get matched up, you then go on an hour walk, and you come back at the end. But what's really cool about it is because you're all signed up and you're all committed, and you've got 1 hour, you really get to the point really quickly. And so, people come and they say, look, I'm having this really difficult situation at work and I just really need some help. Or, I'm really lost in my career and I don't know where to go. And it's a really safe space to have that kind of conversation. It's pretty unique. You're out in nature, you're walking. There's a lot of psychology around having conversations side by side and not at each other. And they talk a lot about that with kids in the car and how tackling tough topics when you're sitting side by side is much easier. So I think you get a bit of that in mentor walks as well, where you're in these smaller groups and you can, talk really honestly as you're walking along. And what's really nice is the mentor may, give advice, but also the other mentees help each other. And that's really lovely to see. So often I learn lots too. So yeah, it's a really great movement, and anyone can sign up. So Ella's actually been along because we had a free ticket one session, and I said, why don't you come? I think my other mentee was there as well from QTech anyway. Yeah, randomly. But it's great.
Yeah, it is. It's a great model. I think the objectivity is really great. Like, you can come with any issue, and these are women that you may have never met before or never would have met, and so you can ask questions and you get this completely objective perspective on it, which is great. It's like, it's not a co-worker and it's not a friend or someone who knows you, it's someone who's completely outside of it, which was great.
It is good. It can be, as the mentor, sometimes you're a bit, oh gosh, how am I going to help this person? But even there was one just a couple of weeks ago, and the lady was looking to progress in her government career and she wanted to get into a particular department. And I was like, hold on, when we all introduced ourselves, wasn't one of the mentors from that department? And so at the end, I ran around and found this lady and introduced her, and she was thrilled. I was like, oh, that was great. But yeah, it's a great concept.
Yeah. And it kind of comes back to what we were saying before about it being like less formal.
Yes.
So yes, kind of get to the point quicker.
Correct.
You can kind of feel more comfortable in those situations. Yeah. My next question was about what makes this model of mentoring different.
Yeah, the out in nature, the walking, just the health benefits of that as well. I think people enjoy it. Some people come in their full workout gear. Some people come in their, dressed to go to work straight after. But yeah, you can continue the relationship with your mentor if you want to, or you don't have to. You can come once and, that's that, or you can connect on LinkedIn afterwards. So I think people can engage as much or as little as they like, both during the session and afterwards. And I think that's what also makes it unique.
For Ella, before being assigned a mentor, did you understand the importance of career mentorship?
If you'd asked me then, I would have said yes, but I would have been wrong. I think I didn't really understand what it looked like, to be honest. I kind of thought a mentor was someone that you just like found in the wild, and you were like, I pick you, you're my mentor. And they chose you as their mentee. And I was kind of, if you'd asked me about it, I would have said, that's great, but like, how do you find that person? How do you find someone who wants to help you as much as you would like their help? But no, I think the program opened my eyes to a more formal connection of mentorship, but also how different it can look for different mentor-mentees. I have friends who, have seen their mentors more or less, and they've seen them in different ways, and they've gone to different events. And so everyone's looks different, which I think is probably what I've learned about it. And that's the beauty of it, that nobody's relationship looks the same. And also, again, that piece about there's always use for that throughout your whole life and your whole career journey. It doesn't stop because you get a particular role, and it doesn't stop because you become a particular age. It just, the value is always there.
And do you think there's like a specific piece of advice that Juliet has given you where you've been like that's really stayed with you?
I think probably that conversation that we had most recently. It's something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and I think it's really relatable for young people who are starting in their career, of this dichotomy of I'm 21 and I want to be 21 and live my life, and maybe I want to travel, or maybe I want to, I don't know, go and do a ski season or something, but also everyone's telling me that this is when I sort of start my career and I need to really work hard at that, and this is where your 20s are for working really hard when you don't have kids or a family or anything like that. So that balance has been something that I've been thinking about more as I started working more. So I think the conversation we had around that put my mind at ease a lot of, you don't have to know right now. And also things will come up.
Yes.
Was, I think, a big piece of that was that you'll find in life that things will just come to you, and you don't necessarily have to. I mean, I'm graduating end of next year. I don't have to figure out right now if I'm gonna move to London the second I graduate, or if I'm gonna, take a break and go traveling or whatever it might be. It'll come up, or it'll become more clear as you keep going, and you don't actually have to figure it all out right now. It was probably the most powerful piece of advice, I think.
I think like a lot of people will hear that and really appreciate that kind of conversation, because for me personally, like that is something that I'm interested in, maybe like after I graduate, or like while I'm still studying, going traveling and maybe doing a ski season. Like those are things that I think a lot of people in our generation had their mind on, but in the same mind also quite aware of the fact that this is the time that you should be working hard and making career moves. And yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
I'd just like to add that I did do a ski season between 4th and 5th year uni, and it was awesome.
Yep.
And I actually lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Aspen, 3 women's girls in one room and 3 John's boys in the other room.
You can't get away.
and one of those was the one, she then went on to Glasgow, and I came back to do 5th year. So there you go.
There you go, yeah. For both of you, how do you think relationships between women at different stages of life strengthen communities like the Women's College?
First of all, female friendships are a really powerful thing. And, I'm really lucky. I mentioned before that there's 12 of us who are still really good friends from our time at college. And actually 9 of us just went for a weekend away on the Gold Coast, like three weeks ago, I think it was. And, we've been through lots together, and I can't see that WhatsApp group, wrapping up. It's fantastic. But I think intergenerational, my best example is probably Patricia Cuppage, who, yes, randomly Ella did meet one day because she walked past us whilst we were having a coffee.
She's fabulous.
She is fabulous.
She reminded me of Anna Victor.
Yes, she does. She liked that. So Patricia's in her 70s, and we met when I worked for Brisbane Marketing, and it was Patricia who got me my job. And so, we became friends through work, and, we've talked about all things over the years, work, family, friends, and it's just awesome for me to have had that older mentor in my life and to learn lots from her. And even it's about sharing the stories, or this is what it was like back then, or you know, these are things I've seen over my time, and you just get a lot from that. And so, yeah, I think they're really powerful.
I think absolutely I agree with all of that. I also think if you can see it, you can be it is something that resonates for me when I think about women's, even girls who came before me who are not necessarily a mentor of mine and who necessarily I don't even know that well, but you see them when they're at women's and you see what they do after, and to watch women that were in your same position go on and achieve great things is so empowering in itself. I've been lucky to have you, Julia, and then also Georgina, who works at 3+ and who was my connection when I got my job there, who were mentoring me, but also just in life, I think, and just having someone that you can look up to and be like, okay, I can see it, I can be it. Like that's maybe what my life could look like when I'm your age. But it's, I mean, when you're at college with 250 girls. So it's even when there's not someone who's not your direct mentor or a direct connection, just watching them progress, I think is so important also. And it's such a women supporting women environment that it's so wonderful to see the success of other people and just see the people who started in your same position go on and succeed. I think it's so important.
I heard a lady say the other day, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women.
Oh.
And it really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So I think being able to help each other is awesome.
And that sense of community, like we were talking about early on the walk over, of like the sense of community doesn't just stop at women's. It like it kind of ripples out into like your share house with your friends, and then like also with like all your other like kind of friendship groups, and just like the wider college area, which is like growing outside of the like when you've actually left college.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what does paying it forward mean to you in the context of mentorship and sisterhood?
And I think it's the opportunity to, it doesn't take much to help someone greatly, I think is what I've learnt. So probably a good example of that is a mentor walk I did a little while ago where this lady had moved to Brisbane from South America, I think it was, and she was doing her master's in engineering and environmental engineering, I think. And she was there just to say, I don't know anyone, like, I just need to, you know, get connected. Could you recommend some things for me to do? And I thought, oh my goodness, environmental engineering is clearly not my background. But we did the walk and everyone gave us some tips in our little group. And then at the end, I pulled out LinkedIn and I thought, oh gosh, I know one lady, and I looked her up and she works for GHD. And I said, would this lady be helpful? And she looked and she's like, oh my goodness, she would be amazing. So I didn't know the lady at GHD super well. Like I knew her well enough to send her a message and ask, but I just sent her a message and said, hey, I've been on Mentor Works, this is what it's about, and this lady is looking for a connection in environmental engineering. Would you have a coffee with her? And she came back like straight away and said, yeah, absolutely, I'll have a coffee. And I think, you know, they went off and did that, and that really helped that young lady in her entry into the Brisbane, you know, corporate world. And it was really easy for me, like super simple, like that's paying it forward, right? And I think someone said to me a long time ago, you know, having a coffee with someone really, you know, it's not that much time out of your day or your week or your year, but it could really help. So when people ask me, I say yes.
I think women's taught me paying it forward. To be honest, I'm only child. I didn't have any sisters or brothers. But I think coming to women's, you have so many informal mentors and mentees, like through the journey. Even when you're in first year, you learn the benefit of talking to the older girls and learning the silliest things, like what time to go to dinner to make sure there's not a line, or what you should wear to the room,
right?
or, you know, the little things. So I think that's the time when I first learned about the benefit of having connections with people in different parts of life to you, even if it's only a year or two. And then the mentor program itself just expanded my understanding of that and my appreciation of that kind of a relationship.
And yeah, for like what you were saying before, like it was just like such a small
Yes.
thing that you were able to do.
Yeah.
And that just like literally would have made such a big impact on her.
Yeah, she wrote back afterwards and said, it was phenomenal. I had a really great conversation. I haven't found out what's happened next, but, I've been able to, it was really easy.
It's a step in the right direction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, Juliet, what advice would you give to students who feel intimidated about reaching out to potential mentors?
No, just what I said, really. I think, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's that same, that old saying, what you're going to know. And that's a reflection on the person you've reached out to, not on you. So I think, be brave and have a go, because the worst case is you'll get a no. And most of the time you'll get a yes, because people, really are willing to help. I think you'll find most people are willing to help. So be brave and, send the message or walk up to someone and ask.
Just to like jump in on that as well, I think it's rare for uni students and young people to reach out to you as someone who's in your career. I remember Georgina was telling me about this. I met her at Women's Industry Night, and I was telling her about this really fantastic tutor that I had, who was part-time tutoring, and he had this really fantastic role at Virgin Australia, and he had this real world experience. I was saying to her, like, he is so fantastic and he's explaining things so well and he's making me really passionate for this subject. And she was like, well, go and get a coffee with him. And I said, well, I don't know, he's just my tutor. Isn't that a bit weird? She's like, no, people in the professional world have been where you are. And it's also so rare for people to reach out to them. So when you do, it's like this golden opportunity to share some expertise and to share some advice. And I took that, and then I went and had a coffee with Georgina, because I thought, oh my God, I better take this great advice that she's given me. And turned out in a job, which not every coffee or connection will, but even just for the practice.
Yes, absolutely.
For the practice of learning how to network and how to speak about yourself and what you want and all those sorts of things is worth more than the embarrassment you might feel if you get a no.
Yeah, and it can be like very intimidating, but maybe like your point about like they have also been in your space before, they can see like that it is an intimidating prospect, and that they will like respond. If they aren't asked often for that thing, generally they will be responsive. Yeah. Okay, Ella, what would you say to someone your age who doesn't really feel ready for a mentor yet?
Well, my perception of that, if you don't feel ready for a mentor, you probably don't understand the role of a mentor or the benefit of that relationship. I think if you don't feel ready for one, that's exactly when you should get one. Because if you don't feel ready for that, what else do you not feel ready for? Like, is the career piece of it intimidating, or the networking piece or whatever, I think. And you can talk to your mentor about how you're not sure if you're ready for a mentor. You can talk to them about anything like that. That would be my...
Yeah, well, I can relate to that, because I don't really feel ready for a mentor, and it's probably because I don't really know where I want my career to go. But that's a good point. Like, I would talk to...
Have that conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Where am I going?
I think it's also a great opportunity to like push yourself in that way. You're like, I don't know yet, but let me really think about this for a minute. If I'm going to go and meet with this person, let me just get my thoughts together and get their advice on that. Like, it's a good opportunity to kind of get that thought process going, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I really appreciate like all of your like wisdom on that career mentor, but we're gonna move into some more like women's college based questions. More fun. So, for both of you, can you share your favorite memory from your time at Women's?
We were talking about this earlier. The first thing that came to my mind was beating Kings in debating. I remember my team, and Sal and they were so cocky, and we like towed them up, and it was so that's high on my list. But I think it's a combination. It's drinking red cordial at lunch, and then finishing early enough to be able to get into Frida Beige and watch Bold and the Beautiful at 1 o'clock, because there used to be a TV in there. I'm not sure if they're still there. like doing massive murals, painting these big posters in the festa pits to get ready for the ball, because we used to cover all the walls in the dining room. I don't know if you still do
No,
that.
we don't do that.
Yeah, so we used to cover them in artwork. It was amazing. What else? Reading the trials and tribulations of Mary was in the weekly printed newsletter. Do that?
We have it's like kind of monthly.
Right. Yes.
Women's Weekly, but it's
Yeah. Okay. But I think just in general, it's just this, I sort of get a smile on my face when I look back at my time at Women's, because it, gave me a lot, and I'm really thankful for that, and particularly my friends. So that's probably, it's probably a combination of all those things.
I would say like that would be quite a common like perspective of like it's just like the little things that make up that awesome like experience that you had at college. Like even for me, I'm going into my third year, and yeah, like when I think about my favorite moments, it's not like a specific one. It's like all of the little moments in like dining hall or like late night chats. Like those are the things that I remember. What about you, Ella?
Yeah, well, going off that, I have 3 because I can't narrow it down. Number 1 was in my first year. We came in, there were a few of us from the same school, and we were really good at volleyball at school, kind of a niche sport, but it was really big on the Sunshine Coast when we were in high school. And we came in, and I think the women's volleyball team hadn't been doing too well. It was, I don't know, they were doing fine, but it was, at that point, it was also a biannual sport, so it was every 2 years.
Okay.
Anyway.
Interesting.
And we came in, and there was 3 of us freshers, and in that year, we won every single game, and we didn't drop a set.
That's impressive.
It was so good, and we won the whole thing, and that was amazing. Also probably spoiled me as a fresher, because I was like, this is great, we're going to win everything all the time, which we pretty much but that was amazing. The second one would be last year we had Cyclone Alfred, which wasn't really a cyclone, but it almost was, which meant we all had a week off uni. Pretty early in, I think it was week 2 or week 3 or something of uni. And it was fantastic for especially the SLT, because we'd had P and O, we were exhausted, and we had this week where we didn't have to do anything. But it was really beautiful because we all went out in the days before to Kmart, and we bought those paint by numbers things. And people bought like play making kits, and people bought endless amounts of snacks. I remember one girl's dad bought out the IGA and dropped off this pack of snacks. It was huge. And so we spent literally a week all sitting in Ewing Festa all day, every day, watching movies and painting and hanging out. It was the best because it's such a busy environment, normally 99% of the time, but everything slowed down. And we didn't have any uni to do because it was like week 2.
Amazing.
So we could just hang out. So that was my second one. And then my last one was every single women's AGM. The sense of pride, the sense of community, and the sense of women supporting women, I've never felt it stronger than that. Girls who all love each other and are best friends, and someone wins, and unfortunately that means someone else loses, but you'll always see the person who lost. They'll be the first one to stand up and give a standing ovation and cheer and scream and clap the loudest. And every time that was just like, it's bittersweet, but it's the most beautiful experience ever.
Second last question. What's your favourite thing about Women's?
I think I covered it with friendship. Like it really is amazing. But the other thing I'd say is my sister and I were reflecting on it. So my sister went to Women's as well, the one above me. She was a couple of years above me. And it's that environment that you've both alluded to where it's women supporting women to be whatever we want to be. And I think that's really powerful because when you're at Women's and you're in that environment, that there's no one telling you can't. And I think, that's really powerful for people on their career journey. And, not everyone gets that. So, that's another reason why Women's really is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's women supporting women for me. I remember walking the day I had my tour and I was in like grade 11 or something. And there's pictures everywhere and people put posters up of their friends and the amazing things that they do. And there were like notes everywhere that said, congratulations notes. There were flowers in everyone's rooms, and it was this amazing. Again, I didn't have sisters, and suddenly I had 250 sisters, and it was so special. And again, everyone was so different, and there were people doing nursing and teaching and law and medicine and everything in between. but you were friends just because you clicked and not because of anything else. And, you know, everything was equally as important. Like every win was celebrated just as much as the other, and every loss had condolences just as sincere as the rest. And it was, yeah, you just ride every wave. It's the most, yeah, it's so special.
It really is. And then lastly, just to wrap it up, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self at university, what would it be?
I would say not even really at university, more at college, because college really stamped my university career, but just, and uni as well, but just embrace everything. And there's that sign on the wall at Women's that says embrace opportunities, and that actually summarizes it for me. Like literally everything. And you're going to be busy and you're going to be tired, but it's such a small part in your life where you get this opportunity to have so much fun, but also to better yourself and to learn so much and to meet so many people, do everything. And there are moments where I'm like, I wish I would have tried for that sport team that I didn't know how to play just for the fun of it. And, you know, just do everything, embrace it, take it all in. It's short-lived. Yeah.
I like it. Mine would probably be around, there's a lot of talk about whether women can have it all. And, you know, people debate that. Some, you know, no, you can't. Yes, you can, but maybe not all at the same time. And I think you can have it all, and I think you can have it at the same time, but I think you need to have a support network around you. So I'm going to bring it back to mentoring, because I think, you know, that's part of your support network going forward. So, you know, don't limit yourself, but make sure you've got, you know, the scaffolding around you to ensure that you can be the best that you can be. And at the times when it does get too much, you know, there are people there to help you, and that's, you know, take people's help, because that's what life's about. So I'd say you can have it all, but make sure you've got a good support crew with you.
Yeah. They were both beautiful sentiments. That was beautiful. I was honestly almost like tearing up when you did Ella. Okay, well, thank you so much for both coming on, guys. I really appreciate you guys being our first podcast guests of 2026.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, okay. Yes, and I think everyone will really appreciate having the combination of like some like older alum, and also like someone's only just left last year, and having that combination is like nice perspective on all fronts. Going to a career mentor, and also we're just a human as well. You can come to me, it's fine. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, great. I hope everyone listening enjoyed the first Voices of Influence podcast of 2026. I think the topic of career mentorship is an important one to talk about, especially for our current third years who are about to embark on a career mentorship journey with the program organised by the Women's College. There were also some really valuable takeaways for the first and second years as they consider their future at the college and what a couple more years here could add to their experience. I really appreciated Juliet's reflections about how she finds being a mentor is mutually beneficial because she enjoys helping people progress professionally and personally. Of course, I also loved her stories from college and how women's may be the first thing she connects with her mentees on, but it always leads to connections elsewhere. It was nice to have Ella on the podcast as she has a very recent experience being at college, and it was beautiful seeing her reflect on her time and what she has gained from her experience with Juliet. Juliet and Ella's relationship is indicative of the value the career mentorship program at the Women's College has. This conversation should be a pertinent reminder to anyone listening that there is never a perfect time to connect with a career mentor and to always embrace opportunities. Thank you for listening to the first Voices of Influence podcast of 2026 and being part of this community. We will see you in the next episode.